One of the major concepts associated with the role-playing game genre is the sense of player growth throughout the narrative. This can take shape in several forms, be it through character development, improvement in player skill, more abilities available to the player, etc. Now, the test of all the player's experience often manifests itself as a boss battle, a singular intimidating exam that the player must pass to proceed. These battles will usually force the player to use multiple previously encountered facets of gameplay. Because of this, the player will usually be able to decipher the actions they must take in order to prevail relatively easily, regardless of whether or not they ultimately have the skill to pull it off. Consider the Pokemon series of games, where a player can enter into any boss fight confidently, given their character is strong, but more importantly that they've mastered the mechanics. In Pokemon, the most prevalent system in place would be the type system, where every monster essentially has a class, with each being strong against some and weak against others. This rock, paper, scissors style battling system carries across the entire game, and the player learns each type's strengths and weaknesses as the game goes on. This knowledge, in addition to knowing which type the next boss battle represents, puts the player at a relative advantage. From there, it's on the player to use that knowledge to utilize the right Pokemon with the right attacks. While this example is fairly specific to Pokemon, the majority of RPGs have the player's strength and skill progressing relative to one or more consistent systems throughout the length of the game. In regards to boss battles, Undertale does not. In Undertale, enemy encounters are split up between attacking, where the player has to land a marker as close to the center of a meter as possible, and defending, where the player has to dodge a plethora of various shapes, all with unique behaviors in an arcade shooter-styled arena. However, when a player enters into a battle with each boss character, this defense mechanic is altered drastically, which forces the player to experiment with which techniques are effective and which are not. Immediately, the player is put at a disadvantage to the game, as they have to learn on the spot how they are expected to survive. The challenge emerges not just from executing what the player already knows they need to do, but from learning and adapting quickly and then using skill to succeed. I should note that neither Pokemon's nor Undertale's style is better than the other, just different. Though because they are different, they provoke different thought processes for the player. Like I mentioned earlier, a player may feel nervous before a boss in Pokemon, but still fairly confident in their knowledge of how the battle will play out. However, in Undertale, a player has no idea what to expect when entering into a fight, which makes the rival feel all the more intimidating. Not to mention, boss battles come at jarring times, catching the player off guard. Notice how in Pokemon, the player initiates the battle when they feel ready to take on the challenge. So, what does Undertale hope to accomplish by making the boss battles so drastically different from the rest of the game? Just switching things up a little to add some spice? Maybe in part, but what this really does is keep the game thematically consistent. Going back to Pokemon, the narrative revolves around a young adventurer making his or her way up in the world, conquering adversity and rising to the very top. Because this motif of triumph is so prevalent in the story, it's effective for the gameplay to let the player feel in control. On the other hand, the overarching themes in Undertale are, for the most part, of an uncertain nature. As shown by the very first sequence in the game, things are not as they seem, and the player is conditioned to be apprehensive about the events that lie ahead. Making each major boss battle uncharted territory allows the game to keep the player consistently tense. It's important for the different aspects of a game to fit together as a cohesive product. Games have, overall, more moving parts than most other forms of storytelling mediums. Creating a fitting balance between each component is important, or else the result can feel incoherent and frustrating to experience. Undertale's bosses, though more outwardly complex and challenging than those of a traditional RPG, work really well to offer an appropriate continuation of the link between story and gameplay mechanics. Toby Fox did a good job.
Greetings, viewer. It is I, Flowey, from the PC computer game, Undertale. I would like to personally thank you for watching this great video about the game that I am from. If you enjoyed your viewing experience, you may find yourself compelled to click like on this video, in order to support Convex, the channel that this great video is hosted on. If you would like to view future content from Convex, subscribing is the most effective and fun way to do so. Once again, I, Flowey, from Undertale, thank you greatly for your time. Catch you on the flip side, skaters.